Senator Bellemare, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Firstly, I'd like to recognize that this evening we are meeting on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe. I wish to speak at second reading today on Bill C-22, bill entitled An Act to Reduce Poverty and Enhance the Financial Security of Persons with Disabilities by establishing the Canada Disability Benefit and making a consequential amendment to the Income Tax Act. So firstly, I'd like to explain why I want to talk to you about this bill. There are certain elements that I would like to see worked on in committee. And then I'd like to give you a little bit of historical context in Canada in the first half of the 20th century. And this is about seniors, this story. And then I'd like to suggest certain changes that we could work on in committee concerning, for example, the title of the bill. So why would I like to speak about this bill? Well, it interests me as a parent. I do not have children with a disability, but I've said to myself, if I would have had children with a disability, how would I feel raising them? I would be very concerned about their future. And this bill would make me very happy because, like Senator Petitclerc said, it is full of hope. But as many of you have already stated, those who have spoken, this bill is not specific enough. We have a serious goal, reducing poverty and supporting financial security. And yet, we have no idea of the amount of the potential benefit. We have no idea how we will be offering this benefit. And the idea is that we're leaving the power in the hands of the cabinet to make this decision, which doesn't ensure that this will be a long-lasting measure and doesn't ensure that it will be uniform with our goals.
Je vais voter en faveur.
Do not worry, I will vote in favor if necessary, but I will ask the committee to do its work as it has done in the past. Now, with that, the speech of Senator Seidman was an eye-opener for many. In 2008, 2009, and then 2018, we had many discussions and we talked about the challenges faced by people with disabilities. But what it takes, what it requires, is a base income, not an income supplement. So when I read that, with the reference to Professor Prince, I started to have more and more clear ideas. And I started thinking that the Senate should assume its responsibility. Because when I read the words of the minister who explained what she intended with the bill, the emphasis was placed on an income supplement, on social assistance. We cannot interpret this any other way. The minister wants to create a benefit which would be a supplement to the social assistance that people with disabilities in working age receive, because people living with disabilities starting from 65 years onwards, they do not receive any social assistance or very little. If there is, it's for other reasons, but in general terms in Quebec, after 65 years of age, people stop receiving social assistance because there's the retirement and the guaranteed income supplement, so two federal programs kick in at that point in time. So, as I was saying, if we are to talk about an income supplement for people living with disabilities, then that means that we think that people who are in a working age living with disabilities, they will remain on social assistance, and then we will supplement them. We will provide a supplement to them, or a supplement to their social assistance, and we will try to negotiate with the provinces to recoup some of the costs. But they will be at the assistance of last resort, if you will. And there is maybe a misunderstanding at this point, and the committee should maybe look into this a bit more. The provinces have the mission of being the last resort. It is the last resort when you go to your province. So the federal government cannot put itself in a position where it is providing a supplement that is the last resort. I think we need to change our approach. So how do we take people living with disabilities out of the situation if we keep them on social assistance programs? So we should ask the question, and I hope in committee you will work on this question. So I started thinking, well, Diane, go back and look at what you wrote in 1979, 1980 when you were writing your PhD thesis. It's an 800-page document. It's on the evolution of social programs in Canada. And in my thesis, I did not really dwell on the circumstances of people with disabilities, but I paid a lot of attention to find out how we managed to make sure that people past the age of 65 no longer needed or relied on social assistance. And I actually relied heavily on the work done by the Senate at the time, and the Senate had played a major role in the adoption of programs to take people beyond a certain age or wean them off of social assistance programs. And the federal government was influenced by certain macroeconomic policies in terms of income security for families, and there was the universal family benefit in 1945, and then in 1951 there was the old age security that targeted people above the age of 65. And they were almost entirely, all of them, on social assistance. So this was the idea, was providing a universal income to everyone past the age of 65. And then with urbanization and other trends, government very quickly decided to create the Régime de rente du Québec for Quebec, and then the similar program for Canada. And with these systems based on contribution, the idea was to take people off of social assistance programs. But in the meantime, with old age security and the income supplement, guaranteed income supplement, the idea was to have a base revenue. Right now, it is about $20,000 for a person with no other source of income, and it allows these people to escape poverty. So, distinguished members of the committee who will look into these matters, I plead to you to look into the nature of this program and to maybe ask yourselves the following question, and maybe the federal government already has a mechanism in place, which is the tax credit for people living with disabilities, but it's not reimbursable. So this could be improved, and it could be made reimbursable, and this would provide a certain level of income to everyone living with severe disabilities. And this brings us to the question, how do we define situation of disability? So, in any case, I would invite you to examine what the provinces are doing. And Quebec has a certain practice. For a long time in Quebec, we did not want to call these people handicapped, the people living with disabilities, and we would not want to introduce this distinction of able and disabled. So we ended up saying people of working age with challenges when it comes to working. And there are different levels of challenges. And with this social solidarity, we are extending a helping hand to people with significant challenges in terms of contributing or taking part in the labor market in any case. And there are different thresholds under social programs, and there are different advantages that are provided. So Minister Qualtrough came up with a great program to integrate people living with disabilities who are of working age in the labor market. And Professor Prince, if you want to invite him, maybe, but he also has his action plan, which also aligns nicely with what the ministers proposed. So I'm just inviting you to adopt a different lens to this problem, because if we stay on the lens of a supplement, that means that we will keep these people on social assistance. A second point I want to talk about will be about the federal-provincial collaboration. It will be necessary to have a plan of not just financial assistance, but also of integration. Maybe it's not in the bill, but in any case, there's an opportunity here because there's a common objective. And who can oppose this objective of reducing poverty for people living with disabilities? No province, in my opinion. So for the government, there is maybe an opportunity to establish more regular contacts with the provinces to work towards this common objective. It might be a grand proposal. It might not be up to the members of the committee to make this a reality, but I just wanted to say that there might be an opportunity here to create federal-provincial institutions for a more collaboration-based federalism. And my last point, it will be about changing the title. And why do we change the title? Well, because in English, it's not acceptable to talk about disabled or handicapped, rather. So in French, it is not the case either. We do not talk about handicapped people, but it has to do with the translation. So when I read the action plan of the minister, nowhere in the document, in the French version at least, there's a reference to handicapped people. There's always reference to people in situations of disability. So just to finish on this point about the title of the bill, this might make you laugh, but I just forgot. I wanted to read you something, a report by the Senate. In 1963, there's a reference to the elderly, and I will read this to you. You will see the parallels here. So the report by the Senate, Senator Crone was the chair.
View of the committee that the income guarantee approach to the income needs of old people has much to recommend it. Apart from its administrative simplicity, by comparison with public assistance, and the modest level of public expenditure that would be involved by comparison with the equivalent increase in the old age security pension, the proposal, in our view, has two important merits. It avoids the indignity of the needs test. C'est ce que fait les programmes d'assistance.
That is what the social assistance programs do.
See several 100,000 retired people subjected. And further, it provides the most effective means we have discovered of correcting the present inequity in our treatment of the already retired and about to be retired generation of old people, a matter which has given us grave concern. Alors, cela,
So I just wanted to read this. And for the committee, also very quickly, just a brief note from René Canuel-Ouellet. And it reads, Your time is up, Senator. Can you give me 2 minutes to read this excerpt? Okay, thank you. The person with disability expression has the problem of causing difficulties for translators working with French because it does not really respect the politically correct terminology, and this creates this sentiment. Should we talk about handicapped people? Well, we might say people with incapacities or deficiencies. But how do we find the right path with all these notions? Well, the World Health Organization actually comes to our rescue. And it has an international classification on deficiencies and handicaps, and it proposes 3 definitions, and I will leave it at that. I hope that the committee will have the chance to look into this because it deserves to be examined. So on that, thank you very much.